You saw the title. Yes, Atlas just gave us a real signal in OH. Not a ping we sent, but a radio absorption line that says cold gas sits in front of a warmer background. That's the first catch.
Well, thanks for having me. We see more than 7 jets that are tightly collimated coming out of this object. And of course, there are 2 possibilities that we considered all along. And so how do we tell the difference? Well, if it's a natural object, then we know the temperature on the surface of a rock, given its distance from the sun. And these jets are naturally produced out of ice on the surface of a rock. And the second possibility is that they might be thrusters on the technological spacecraft.
Now watch the waterline of this story. New images show a bright halo stretching hundreds of thousands of kilometers and at least 7 jets, some pointing starward, like cross-currents around a reef. I'll show you how to read those jets like tide rips, why they matter for motion, and what they say about natural venting versus controlled thrust. Before we move on, I'd like to ask you a small favor. If you appreciate this content, please take a second to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Over 98% of you watch the videos without subscribing. It costs you nothing, but it makes a huge difference to us. So, did you click the subscribe button? Great, thank you so much. Now, back to the video.
We've got some updates. Check out these new images that show 3i Atlas in a whole new light. What's going on with this situation? What are these jets? So how did the object go from an anti-tail to a tail to a no-tail to an anti-tail to whatever it is that we are now seeing? Is it streaming out? What is all this? Is it breaking up after possibly going behind our sun? A little confusing because this all comes after last week images showed the object with no tail. Weird.
If a bait ball boils under birds, you know there's action. Same read here. An OH dip in radio and 7 steady jets say Atlas isn't drifting. It's working. Let's lay out the fresh catches. First, radio absorption from hydroxyl. That shows cold gas sitting between us and a warmer radio background, taking a thin bite out of the spectrum. Second, near IR and optical frames stack up into a bright halo stretching far from the core, with at least 7 distinct jets. They hold shape, not just flares or noise. You get a spread that looks organized, not a random puff. Now the rub. We measure a non-gravitational push. But we don't see the giant debris fog you'd expect if a load of mass blew off. That gap matters.
Even after it passed through perihelion, it was heated by 770 watts per square meter. And we know that the previous plume of gas was mostly carbon dioxide by the solar radiation and the solar wind. But we don't see that. So the question is, what's going on? One possibility is that what evaporates from it are fragments of ice, and they get vaporized by sunlight. And carbon dioxide ices can sublimate at a much lower temperature than water ice. So we should have seen it break up, or at the very least disintegrate to a very dense and massive cloud of gas and dust that is pushed away from the sun.
If you lean on simple momentum math, big thrust from gas alone should shed a lot of stuff. That would glow. The sky stays clear, so the mechanism has to be efficient, directional, or both. Here's OH absorption in plain words. When cold gas sits in front of a warmer source, it soaks up a narrow slice of radio light tied to the molecule's fingerprint. That's a vent, not a dead surface. Think of it as steam over a crack on a cold dawn. You don't need a bright plume to log it. The line tells you the gas is there and chill. The line's shape adds more. The Doppler shift lands where you expect for Atlas's motion during the listen, and the width sits right for gas near the surface at this solar distance. Wider means faster thermal jostle, narrower means cooler, slower stuff. Here, the spread lines up with the heating you'd get out at that range. That's like reading current speed off your line angle when you drift a jig. You don't see the current, but the pull tells you. Now to the jet map. Multiple plumes, some pointed toward the star, keep steady across frames, even with twilight and moon glare washing the field. Short exposures, different nights, same features. That persistence is the tell. A real rip holds shape as the tide swings, a trick of light fades when you shift your stance or the sun angle. A natural reed fits the basics. Patchy ice warms up and vents. As the body turns, those vents sweep, so jets arc and fan.
Before they have a chance to turn around and show up as a plume of glow behind it, away from the sun. That's one possible interpretation, but otherwise I just don't know what to make of it. So what I'm saying is, you know, there are things we don't fully understand about this object. That's what makes it exciting, and I think all of us will wait for the data that will come in the coming weeks. There was also a blue color that was noticed just a few days ago, and also in addition to that, it became brighter by a factor of 5.
Because dust trails stack along the orbit, you can get anti-tails that point the wrong way when you stand in the right line with the sun and the trail. Odd angles don't break the rule, they come from the view and the grain size and the flow. On the other hand, the cluster of starward jets opens a technical read. Tight, steady plumes that bias one side can act like attitude control. They steer without dumping a mountain of mass. That would square the push with the missing bright cloud. If the plumes are narrow, warm, and repeated in the same sectors, they behave more like thrusters than vents, at least in effect. 'Cause of that, the field of flow matters more than any single flare. You've got OH absorption saying cool gas is up and between us and a hotter background. You've got jet geometry that stays put over sessions, with a lean towards starward directions. Put those together and you get active venting with structure. Structure drives force. Force changes path. The trick is reading both the chemistry and the map at once. The OH line proves there's fresh gas in front. The jets sketch where that gas leaves and how it aims. When the patterns sync with the measured nudge, you can tie source and push with fewer leaps. That's how you fish an edge. You match the mark on your screen with the swirl on the surface, then set your drift. So the signal here isn't a hello in Morse. It's the OH dip plus a live jet map. Those two confirm thermal activity and a complex, directional flow that can steer motion without a loud dust storm. That said, the next test is simple and sharp. Watch how the push scales as sunlight climbs and see if the starward cluster holds or slides with the day-night cycle. Next, we'll track that change and set a watch list for when the light turns up. The OH line is the tell. The 7-jet spread is the chart. Read together, they show live flow that can nudge Atlas without a loud dust storm. That's the edge you watch for, subtle force with clear aim. Now, watch for new high-res frames and low-frequency listens. Subscribe and come back. I'll walk you through each fresh image like tide lines before a bite window, so you can read the water fast. If the push holds while jets swing with sunlight, we'll know if we're seeing wild ice or quiet thrust. Either way, we map the current. Next pass in brighter light will speak even clearer.